If this reached you right now, there's a reason. Your body is an antenna receiving and broadcasting every second. Biophotons, actual light, pulse through your cells, and when you're coherent, that light organizes. When you're scattered, it's static. You've felt it. The weight in your chest before a hard conversation, the fog when you can't decide, the exhaustion from carrying everyone else's frequency. That's not random. That's your electromagnetic field picking up interference. And here's what changes everything. You can retune it in 90 seconds. This is the last portal. When the old reactive you falls away, you stop searching outside and become the field that emits the reality you live. Not metaphor. Physics. Your emotions are frequencies. Fear broadcasts one signal. Gratitude broadcasts another. Your body receives both and transmits what you choose. I know because I lived the opposite for years. Anxious mornings, tense meetings, always bracing for what's next. Then one afternoon, stuck in overwhelm, I ran a 2-minute protocol. Breath slowed, chest warmed, mind cleared. The conversation I dreaded became effortless. That was my turning point. In the next minutes, you'll get the foundations, the exact practice, real stories, and one challenge you can test today. You're not here by accident. You're here because something in you knows. It's time to stop reacting and start radiating. Let's begin. You know that static you feel when you're stuck in fear? That's not just a feeling, it's a frequency. Your body's broadcasting noise, and every cell's picking up interference. But here's what most people miss. Gratitude, real gratitude, isn't just positive thinking. It's signal clarity. When you shift from panic to presence, your electromagnetic field stops crackling and starts humming. I've felt it myself. Years ago, I'd wake up with my chest tight, mind racing before my feet hit the floor. Then I learned something that changed everything. Emotions aren't abstract. They're frequencies your body transmits every single breath. Let me take you deeper. Your cells emit light, tiny photons called biophotons. Scientists can measure this. When you're scattered, that light scatters too. But when you enter coherence, something extraordinary happens. Those photons line up. They march in formation. Your biological systems start communicating with precision instead of chaos. I remember the first time I understood this viscerally. I was sitting in my car before a difficult conversation, and instead of rehearsing what to say, I just breathed. 4 slow cycles. My hands warmed, my jaw unclenched. When I walked in, the whole dynamic shifted. Not because of my words, but because my field had reorganized. Your heart isn't just a pump. It's an electromagnetic broadcaster 50 times stronger than your brain. When your breath and heartbeat sync up, your nervous system gets the memo. We're safe. We're present. We can think clearly now. The prefrontal cortex, that's your decision-making headquarters, lights up like a city grid coming back online after a blackout. I've watched people make one choice while stressed and the opposite choice 10 minutes later after practicing coherence. Same person, same situation, different broadcast frequency. The body changes the mind faster than the mind changes the body. Think of an old radio. You turn the dial, and all you get is static, voices buried under noise, music you can almost hear but can't quite catch. Then you adjust it, just a fraction, and suddenly the signal's crisp. Every instrument distinct, every word clear. Your body is that radio antenna. Your emotions are the dial. Most of us spend our lives slightly off station, wondering why connection feels hard and decisions feel murky. But you're not broken. You're just tuned to interference. The moment you adjust your internal frequency through breath and heart focus, the static drops. What's always been there becomes audible. Here's the part that shifts everything. The world outside responds to the signal inside, not eventually, not symbolically, immediately. When you regulate your electromagnetic field, you're not just feeling better. You're changing what your environment perceives and how it reacts. I've tested this 100 times. Walk into a tense room while you're in coherence and watch shoulders drop. Send an email after a 2-minute practice and notice the reply tone. Your field isn't invisible. It's the first thing that enters any space you occupy. So the question isn't whether you're broadcasting, you always are. The question is, what frequency are you choosing right now? But what happens when you take this from concept to consistent practice? What shifts when you stop understanding coherence and start living inside it? In 2 minutes, I'll show you the exact protocol that turned theory into transformation for thousands of people, including me. The elevator's waiting. Picture an elevator in a high-rise building. Each floor is a different frequency. Ground level? That's survival mode. Tight chest, scanning for threats, reactive. Third floor? Neutral. Functional but flat. 10th floor? Coherence, clear, warm, spacious. Most people ride this elevator all day without realizing they're holding the button. Your breath is that button. Your attention on your chest is the key that unlocks every floor above ground. I spent years stuck between the basement and second floor, wondering why I felt so heavy. Then someone showed me the controls I'd been carrying the whole time. Here's your 10-second body scan, the fastest reset you'll ever learn. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. Drop attention into your head. Just notice. Move to your chest. Feel the weight, the temperature. Slide down to your abdomen. Any tightness? Then hands. Tingles, warmth, nothing at all. Doesn't matter. Finally, feet. Pressure, contact with ground. No judgment. No fixing. Just sensing. This isn't meditation. It's reconnaissance. You're checking the instrument panel before you fly. I do this before every important conversation now. 10 seconds. It brings me back into my body when my mind's already 3 moves ahead. Now the protocol that changes everything. Slow your breath to 4 to 6 cycles per minute. That's roughly 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. Place one hand on your chest. Feel the warmth building there. This isn't imagination. Your electromagnetic field concentrates where attention goes. Hold this for 60 to 90 seconds in complete silence. Then ask yourself with brutal honesty, what do I actually feel right now? Not what you should feel, not the story, the raw truth underneath. Finally, ground yourself in sensation. Listen to ambient sound, feel your feet on the floor, notice the temperature on your skin. 5 steps, 2 minutes max. This is the architecture of coherence. Let me tell you about the impossible email. I had a project stalled for 3 weeks because one person wouldn't respond. I'd sent follow-ups, changed my tone, tried every angle. Nothing. One morning, before I typed another message, I ran the protocol. 4 minutes total. Hand on chest. Breath slowed. Stopped forcing the outcome and just felt the frustration fully. Then let it settle. When I wrote the email, it was 3 sentences. Honest, direct, no pressure. Response came in 2 hours. Meeting scheduled. Deal moved forward. Was it magic? No. My field had been broadcasting desperation. Once I cleared that static, the communication landed clean. Michael had a similar experience with a business proposal. He pitched an idea to a senior partner who shut it down flat, just, no, not now, maybe never. Michael sat in his car afterward, jaw clenched, already building the resentment story. Then he remembered. 90 seconds of coherence practice right there in the parking lot. Breath, chest, silence, truth. He was scared of being dismissed. He felt it, grounded. Walked back inside 20 minutes later, not to argue, but to ask one clarifying question from a centered place. The partner paused, looked at him differently, and said, "You know what? Let's test this for 30 days. Same person, same proposal, different frequency broadcast." The field shifted the field. Or take the woman in traffic. I'll call her Sarah because this could be any of us. Someone cut her off aggressively, and her body flooded with rage instantly, hands gripping the wheel ready to chase them down or scream. But she'd been practicing for 2 weeks. She pulled over, did 90 seconds, just breath and body, felt the anger without feeding it. By the time she merged back in, the charge was gone. She arrived on time, didn't wreck her morning, avoided a conflict that would have cost her energy for hours. That's not suppression. That's sovereignty. You're not stuffing emotion. You're choosing your response instead of being hijacked by reaction. And here's what nobody tells you. Once you experience that choice even once, you can't unsee it. The old autopilot starts looking like a cage you can walk out of anytime. So you've felt it now, the shift from static to signal, from reaction to response. But what happens in your body when you make this a daily practice? What actually changes in 24 hours, in 3 weeks, in the cells themselves? The evidence is about to get physical. Stay with me. Your body keeps score. Within 3 days of practicing coherence, people report deeper sleep. Not just more hours, but the kind where you wake up actually restored. Your digestive system relaxes because your vagus nerve stops screaming emergency. Food processes smoother. Inflammation drops. Your immune system gets the memo that it can stop over-defending and start precision targeting. I noticed this myself after 10 days. Meals that used to sit heavy moved through clean. Mornings felt lighter. My body wasn't fighting itself anymore. This isn't placebo. This is what happens when your electromagnetic field stops broadcasting chaos and your cells can finally do their job without interference. Your mind sharpens in ways you didn't know were dull. Focus stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like flow. You're in a meeting and instead of scrambling for the right words, they arrive at the right moment. Decisions that used to paralyze you. Should I say yes? Should I wait? Should I pivot? Suddenly have clear answers. Not because you've gained new information, but because your prefrontal cortex is fully online. The timing improves. You call someone right when they needed to hear from you. You postpone a choice that would have backfired. I used to force decisions from anxiety. Now I wait for the breath to settle, and clarity shows up like clockwork. Your body knows before your mind catches up. Here's where it gets strange and undeniable. Synchronicities multiply. Think of coherence as Wi-Fi for your electromagnetic field. When you're broadcasting a clear frequency, the right connections find you without effort. You think of someone, they text within an hour. You need a specific resource. Someone mentions it in passing the next day. A problem you've been grinding on suddenly has a solution you weren't even looking for. This isn't mystical, it's field resonance. Like tuning forks. When one vibrates at a certain frequency, others nearby start humming the same note. Your coherence tunes you to matching frequencies in your environment, and the world responds. I'll give you the 24-hour test. After one solid practice session, just 2 focused minutes of breath, chest warmth, and silence, watch for 3 coincidences in the next day. Not huge miracles. Small, specific alignments. A parking spot opening exactly when you arrive. A message containing the answer to something you were wrestling with. An invitation that unlocks a project you'd shelved. I've tested this dozens of times. One morning I practiced before heading to a crowded coffee shop. Walked in. Empty table by the window, no wait. Got a text from a collaborator I'd been meaning to reach for weeks. Overheard a conversation next to me about a book that solved a problem in my current project. 3 hits in 90 minutes. Coincidence? Maybe once. But when it repeats every time you enter coherence, you start seeing the pattern. The criterion is beautifully simple. If you feel lighter and more present after the practice, you've moved up a floor in that elevator. If your chest is spacious instead of tight, if your thoughts are organized instead of scattered, if you're here instead of rehearsing the future or replaying the past, you've entered coherence. Your body is the instrument. You don't need external validation. The feedback is immediate. Breath slows, shoulders drop, mind clears. You've shifted frequency. The evidence isn't in your head, it's in your cells, your nervous system, the warmth in your hands, the ease in your jaw. Trust what the body reports. It's never confused about what state you're in. But what happens when you bring this coherence into a room with other people? When your field meets their field? What changes when you become the tuning fork in a space that's out of sync? The next layer reveals how your personal practice becomes collective transformation. Keep going. Your personal electromagnetic field is a tuning fork. Walk into a room and before you speak, your coherence or lack of it sets the tone. Not through words, not through body language alone. through the invisible broadcast your heart sends out in a 15-foot radius. I've tested this in boardrooms, family dinners, and tense negotiations. When I enter scattered, the room stays jagged. When I enter coherent, something settles. People don't know why. They just feel it. Their nervous systems register safety. Their breath unconsciously deepens. You're not manipulating. You're stabilizing the field. And here's the truth that leaders miss. Presence regulates presence faster than any agenda or argument. Let me tell you about the meeting that should have exploded. 8 people, 3 competing priorities, everyone dug into their position. I arrived 5 minutes early, sat in my car, and ran the protocol. 90 seconds. Breath slowed to 5 counts. Hand on chest. Let the frustration surface without rehearsing my defense. Grounded through my feet. Walked in calm, not passive, clear, not combative. I didn't open with my point. I asked one question. What does success look like for each of you today? The room exhaled. People who'd been interrupting started taking turns. The meeting that could have burned 2 hours wrapped in 45 minutes with actual decisions made. My coherence didn't fix the problem. It created the space where solutions could emerge. Here's what nobody teaches about influence. You don't have to impose your will. You regulate the field and the field reorganizes itself. Your vagus nerve, the main highway of your parasympathetic system, sends signals through micro-expressions, tone, and that electromagnetic broadcast. When you're coherent, other people's vagus nerves pick up the frequency and start mirroring it. It's called neuroception, safety detection below conscious awareness. You've felt this. Someone walks in anxious and your chest tightens. Someone walks in grounded and you breathe easier. You're not imagining it. You're receiving their field transmission. Once you know this, leadership stops being about control and starts being about calibration. Now the practical layer. Start group interactions with 60 seconds of synchronized breathing. Sounds soft, but watch what happens. Before the agenda, before the conflict, everyone breathes together. 4 to 6 cycles per minute. You can frame it as centering or clearing the space. Language doesn't matter as much as the practice. Then create agreements. One person speaks at a time. No interrupting. Name your emotion before you state your position. Simple. I'm frustrated that this deadline shifted lands differently than you always change things last minute. When people name their emotional truth without blame, the body relaxes and the brain can think. I've seen hostile rooms transform in 10 minutes using just these micro-habits. The results aren't subtle. Less noise means faster decisions. Less reacting means less rework. When your team operates from coherence instead of cortisol, meetings shorten, emails clarify, projects move. I watched one company cut their weekly leadership call from 2 hours to 75 minutes just by opening with a brief coherence practice and closing loops instead of leaving them open. People stopped talking past each other because the field had aligned first. The information didn't change. The broadcast frequency did. And here's the invisible ROI. People leave those interactions energized instead of drained. That's the marker. If your presence costs people energy, you're leaking. If your presence restores it, you're leading from coherence. But what happens when this becomes more than a meeting hack? When you train your body to default to coherence instead of reaction? When the practice stops being something you do and starts being who you are? That's where identity shifts, and everything that seemed hard becomes effortless. The final piece is coming, and it's the one that makes all of this permanent. Stay close. Repetition rewrites the body's operating system. Every time you choose coherence over reaction, you're coding a new default. Your nervous system learns through pattern, not intention. Do something once, it's an event. Do it daily for 3 weeks, it becomes your new baseline. I used to be the person who snapped in seconds. Email triggered me, I fired back. Conversation went sideways, I escalated. That wasn't a personality flaw. That was a programmed response my body had practiced 10,000 times. But here's the shift. You're not stuck with factory settings. The reactive you isn't permanent. It's just the current program. And programs can be rewritten one breath at a time. Your minimum viable routine is shockingly simple. 5 to 10 minutes, morning and night. For 30 days straight. Not when you feel like it. Not when things are already smooth. Every single day, even the good ones. Here's the sequence. Breathe slowly, 4 to 6 cycles per minute. Place your hand on your chest and generate warmth there, real or imagined. Sit in silence for 60 seconds without solving anything. Ask yourself, what's actually true right now? Not the story you're building, the raw feeling underneath. Then ground through your feet. Feel the floor, the chair, your body's weight. 5 steps, 10 minutes max. This isn't meditation, it's recalibration. You're training your electromagnetic field to default to coherence instead of chaos. Let me tell you about David. 3 years ago, he'd react within seconds to any perceived slight. Someone questioned his idea in a meeting. Instant defense. Partner raised a concern at home. Immediate shutdown. His body was wired for threat detection, and it was destroying his relationships. He started this exact routine. Morning, 10 minutes before checking his phone. Night, 10 minutes before bed. No exceptions. First week, nothing dramatic. Second week, he noticed a micro-pause appearing between stimulus and response. Not big, maybe 2 seconds, but enough to feel the impulse instead of obeying it. By week 3, that pause had space in it. Room to choose. A colleague challenged him, and instead of the automatic rebuttal, he felt his chest tighten, took one full breath, and asked a clarifying question. The conversation shifted completely. That's not willpower. That's a reprogrammed nervous system responding from coherence instead of cortisol. Now the days when everything falls apart, because they will. You're exhausted, overwhelmed, behind schedule. Here's the non-negotiable rule. Don't break the chain. Reduce the goal if you must. Can't do 10 minutes, do 3. Can't sit still, do it standing. Can't focus. Just do the breath and chest warmth, skip the rest. But maintain the ritual. The body doesn't care if you did the full protocol perfectly. It cares that you showed up. Missing 1 day creates a crack. 2 days becomes a pattern. 3 days, and you're back to the old operating system. I've tested this dozens of times. The moment I think I'm too busy for this, I know I'm already slipping. That's when I need it most. Shorten it, simplify it, but never skip it. The progress markers are subtle, but unmistakable. You'll notice less urgency in your decision-making. Things that felt like emergencies last month now feel manageable. More lucidity. Brain fog lifts and you see patterns you were missing. Better conversations. People respond to you differently because your field has changed. You're not trying to control outcomes. You're showing up coherent and letting the field do its work. I remember the moment I realized the practice had rewired me. Someone cut me off in traffic, and my body stayed calm. Not suppressed calm. Actual calm. No spike, no story, no residue. I noticed it, adjusted my route, and forgot about it in 30 seconds. The old me would have carried that irritation for an hour. That's when I knew this wasn't a technique anymore. It was my new identity. The body had learned a different frequency, and it was broadcasting automatically. So you've got the full map now, from understanding frequency to practicing coherence, to living it as identity. But there's one final threshold most people never cross. One portal that separates those who dabble from those who transform completely. And it's not what you think. What's coming next will reframe everything you've just learned. Ready? The last portal isn't about understanding more. It's about practicing until you become the field itself. You've got the map. You know the frequency. Now the only question that matters, will you do this right now? Let's practice together. 90 seconds. Breathe in for 5 counts, out for 5, 4 to 6 cycles per minute. Place your hand on your chest. Feel warmth building there, real or imagined. Sit in silence for 60 to 90 seconds. Don't solve anything. Just be. Now ask yourself with brutal honesty, what do I actually feel right now? Name it. Finally, ground yourself. Notice 3 sensations: the hum of a device, pressure of your feet, temperature on your skin. That's it. You just shifted your electromagnetic field. Your body knows what your mind is still catching up to. Here's your commitment. Before your next important conversation today, retune. 90 seconds. Watch what changes. If this landed, hit like so I know you're practicing. Subscribe and turn on notifications. You're part of the 1% who doesn't just consume but transforms. And share this with one person who needs peace right now. They're waiting for permission. You just became it.